All right, so the next fight, Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. Another great fight. Just such a champion level fight this was. And a fight that I want to say, as I mentioned earlier, mentality in a fight and where you feel you are in a fight can definitely play a role. And I think that's what happened in this fight. We saw Alexander, he came out good. Both fighters came out really good. Max Holloway and Alexander felt each other out for a while. Actually, it was about 2 minutes in until I think they started really mixing it up. It was a pretty long filling out process. Alexander was aggressive. Holloway was defensive and trying to land the strikes using his reach. He had a massive, I think it was the first round, he had a really good head kick, dropped down Alexander. I think that was a significant part of round one, and that gave him round one. So I think Max definitely clearly won round one, no questions asked. Then between rounds, Max Holloway shushed Anik. I don't know why. I guess at the end he was talking about something about Zoom training or something, but I don't know if he was talking about his commentary. And it's interesting to note that when these guys fight, and they're fighting in the Apex, or I guess Fight Island, which was kind of set up similar to the Apex, you can probably hear the commentators quite well. I could never hear the commentators ever when I fought, and I never heard them. I heard my corner, and I could hear my other corner, but I wasn't. It's weird when you're a fighter, but you're kind of in tune to your corner's voice, which is weird. So like depending on where you're at in the fight, you could be at any part of the octagon, and so you might be right next to your opponent's corner. And I have heard them before, but for the most part, no matter where I was in the octagon, I always heard Bob Cook's voice or Javier, whoever my corner was at the time that was screaming at me. But I think in this situation, it's kind of weird. It adds a different dynamic when you can hear the commentators. And I've had situations in the past where I didn't agree with the commentators when they were calling my fights, and I had times when they were overly positive about my fight and maybe too positive, giving me too much credit. So I've had both things happen, and it makes me wonder how I would react to that during the fight. And so when Max Holloway shushed, he did the little shush to John Anik during the fight, it made me wonder, because he was talking a lot about leg kicks, he was talking about, maybe, was it kicks? I think he was talking about kicks. But he was talking about a lot of things that Max Holloway was doing, and I don't know if he was saying that in regards to quit saying what I'm doing. I don't know. It's just a weird dynamic that I'm curious myself how that affects the fighters in the fight. And I've never seen a fighter really kind of address the commentators in a way of telling them to not talk. So I don't know what he was doing. But it's got to be a little bit weird to hear them, because a lot of times punches will be thrown and you'll block, and then the punch will hit your glove, and it makes the sound. So you hear the impact, but it didn't hit you. It hit your hand. You blocked it. And I've had fights where Joe Rogan or Mike Goldberg or whoever else would say, "Oh wow, big left hook by Dan Hardy," whatever the case, or big right or something, and it didn't hit me. And I'd be like, "Oh, damn," that has an effect on what people think when they watch the fight. And it's happened to me too, where I've thrown strikes that maybe not have landed, and they called it as well. So it's interesting, just on a side note, to wonder what these guys, next time I get someone on the podcast that's fought at the Apex or one of these events, I'm going to ask them this question, because I am very curious, how that plays out during the fight. Because shockingly, you're very focused on your fight out there, but you do think about you think of a lot of weird things. So you have a very clear mind out there. I've always had a clear mind. So I've thought about the fight, and then when I was in the clinch and maybe tied up, I still knew what I was going to do. I'm going to transition into this when I can. I couldn't at the moment. I had to move his hand out of the way or push his head to the side or whatever the case. But during that time, I would often look over and think about something that was going on that I saw outside the octagon or somewhere else or whatever. So I can just imagine what it's like to actually hear the commentators, hear the corners, at the same time, and be hearing that so loud while you're out there fighting, and it's affecting your fight because they're saying everything you're doing and what you might do and what you could do, and then your opponents what they should be doing. And I don't know. I'm going to find out. So stay tuned, subscribe, because we're going to get this answered, and we're going to figure it out. But anyway, so I think Max took round two as well. I think he was aggressive, landed some big uppercuts. I want to say that Alexander tried to take him down, and then he punished him for it with some big uppercuts or something, if I remember correctly, for round 2. Round 3 was the close round. I think Max had the pressure. That's the round. I think round 3 was when Alexander went for the takedown, and then Max followed up with a knee afterwards. So it was kind of back and forth in that round. It was very close. I think I gave that round to Max still, even though it was very close. So now I had Max 3 up. Even though Alexander was pushing the pace and doing well, Max was just utilizing his reach and, his timing and his distance and his speed. And I think he was just doing a better job overall. Round number 4, same thing started happening, but as far as Max, he was putting the pressure, and he was trying to get off his punches, but I noticed he was easing back a little bit. And this is what, I don't know what was said in between the rounds. I don't know if he thought he'd won the first 3 rounds, but it seems like he was starting to ease off a little bit of the gas. And I think at one point, definitely by round 5, maybe in round 4, he started putting his hands down even and doing that whole thing. And I feel like he was kind of throwing the fight away, assuming that he won. And that may have turned out to be a big problem, and the reason that he did end up ultimately losing the fight. Alexander came strong, was landing big things. Then he ended with a nice takedown, and I don't know what else to say. I feel like 3 rounds to 2, I feel like Max should have won, depending on how that 3rd round went. But he clearly slowed down in those last couple rounds, and Alexander pushed forward harder. And so that's why I always say the end of the fight is last impressions are the most important when it comes to fighting. It's not first impressions. You can completely dominate in the first round, second round. I've seen fights where 2 rounds are won clearly, and then a really bad 3rd round, not even a 10-8, but the judges still give it to the guy, the fighter that did dominate in the 3rd round. And that's just the way it is. So always have to fight through to the very end. And for that reason, Max Holloway lost via split decision, I think it was again. And that sucks for him, but good for Alexander. So Alexander's very happy, and now he's a defending champion, and he'll probably have another fight. I think he's got a bright future. I definitely do. I think Max Holloway will be back too. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's going to be just fine. I just wish he had kept doing exactly what he did in the first and second throughout the whole fight. I think he would have been okay. I think that would be my input. But, so there's that one.